Welcome to the Business Reporter. I'm Louise People, and today I'm joined by Dick Deckers and Marcel Wendt from Dig Identity. Morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So, digital payments should make our lives easier, but do we forfeit security when it comes to convenience? So the faster we work with these things, they become less secure.
Yeah, that may look like it. On the other hand, all digital transactions need to be secure and convenient. However, I strongly believe that you don't need to compromise. There is a solution to actually be able to have both. But it's more about the assurance, the level of assurance. How certain do you want to be about the person you're interacting with?
Now, I always want to be sure that I'm making the right transaction with the right person, but there is a weak spot, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. The biggest issue is, are you actually the person you say you are? And probably the biggest issue is a gap of generations. I mean, the really young people, they're tech savvy, they grew up with these kind of things. The elderly, they hardly do online transactions. They interact through different channels. The biggest problem is within the age group of 30 to 55, maybe.
Okay.
They're busy, they're quite tech savvy, but not as tech savvy as the youngsters. Do a lot of online transactions. They buy books, do online banking, and that's where it all goes wrong.
Now, how do we recognize that trouble is coming? Because I fit into that bracket. Now, how would I know that the trouble is there?
Yeah, it's actually really hard to see it coming. I mean, if it was easy, prevention would be much easier. If you look at the news, we see an increase in stories about identity theft, data breaches on a day-to-day basis. Major companies impact thousands or maybe even millions of users. So data gets stolen, users get locked out of services just because of a breach. Now, it's not about detection, it's more about prevention. How do you make sure that you as a company or you as a person don't end up in the news?
Can you explain further digital identity?
It's a digital passport. So companies like us going to prove if you really are the people you claim to be. So we're doing that verification and validation of different things. But in general, it's a digital passport.
Now, you mentioned identity as a target for fraudsters. Can you be more specific and give us an example how a breach actually occurs?
Yes, there's a list of 3: phishing, large-scale data, and real identity theft. So the phishing email, you get a mail from your bank, you think it is your bank, you're logging in and you give all your credentials to the fraudster. So you lose your identity at that moment from the bank. Large-scale data, like the hack what Dick already mentioned with Sony, large-scale data, so they get a lot of credit card information, but also security questions. What is the date of birth for your father, or the maintenance name of your mother, that kind of things, they're grabbing these data. And the third one, that's the biggest one, is that fraudster, an individual, create an identity who is not himself. So he's claiming them benefits by the government, and that's around 50% of the identity theft.
Now, how serious is this problem?
Well, it's actually hard to put any value to that. Estimates vary from 2 to about £5 billion in the UK every year. Basically, that means that we all provide criminals with about 10 million a day. Just cash flow for criminal activities. And actually, identity theft and identity fraud is over 40% of national fraud.
Wow. So whose job is it to protect us from these attacks?
It's a responsibility for all of us. I mean, we should work together. Fraudsters don't work in silos. So in the end, it's a responsibility for government to educate and make people aware of what is actually happening and how they can prevent identity theft from taking place. It's a problem or a responsibility for the industry, private sector, online retailers, banking, and companies like ourselves to provide secure and still convenient ways to do online transactions. And the third really important part is the individual. Be aware of what you do online. Be aware of all the information you put out there on a daily basis. Imagine what you put up on Facebook, and if that information gets misused and someone else ends up being you online.
Now, I've been looking at your website. There are a few technical terms that you use. Perhaps you could explain a little further to me. What is level of assurance?
Level of assurance is when you're creating an identity in our system, we're going to prove if you say you are. So you claim your identity and we split it up in 4 levels. So with level 1 we do some minor checking, and with level 4 we do a lot of checking. We see you face to face, checking your passport, checking biometrics in your passport, etc. At level 3 we do it, for example, with a mobile phone, with a selfie. We're checking the selfie with the photo of the passport. So that's the level of assurance. So the bigger the transaction is, the higher level of assurance you have to need.
And e-signing?
The more and more we do on the internet, the more and more digital documents we get. And to sign a digital document, it's not, a normal sign is not useful anymore. So we really need to secure the file and know who signed this document. So there's a standard solution for it, and we've incorporated it in our system.
Now, let's say I decide to work with Digidentity. How do we bring about a solution?
Okay, well, first of all, we take away all the hassle. It's complicated. Proving someone's identity, managing a system that is secure and still convenient takes a lot of work. And that is what we do, and that's the only thing we do. So we work very closely with our clients. It could either be government or private sector, doesn't matter. We take about 5 steps, and we determine how sure do you want to be about the person logging on, and we take care of all the rest. We take out all the complexity about architecture and design and maintenance and stuff like that. And in the end, we provide it as a service. Identity as a service, that's basically what it is.
Now, there's a huge amount of trust here. If I was to trust Digidentity and your employers, how do I know that my information is actually safe in your hands?
First of all, we created a system with a patent pending on it, so it's really secure. The data is really secure. So each identity is differently encrypted than the other identity. So if you can break it, you only have one identity and not a whole database full of identities. The second is we work with privacy by design. Just everything what we build, we first look to the privacy that everything is correctly done. And also the people get screened before they can work for us.
It's everything you read about in the newspapers is about scams and frauds. And it seems like we're in a permanent race with hackers and identity theft. Is this solution sustainable?
It still is at the moment. So it's for us a race always to looking for the newest technology to keep up to date. We have created now a digital vault with security by encryption. And we have to keep on these encryption as well. So you have different kind of encryption. So we involve in this encryption technology as well. So we're looking to biometric. Also the telephone companies helps us with facial recognition, with fingerprint. So we keep up to date with the newest technology to improve our product as well.
Yeah, so what you see is the companies basically split up between one part of the company is actually running the operation using proven technology and actually solutions that are viable at this point in time. And there's another part of the company that's actually doing research and development, looking at what might happen in the future, what would we need to get in place to prevent hackers and fraudsters basically to overtake our systems.
Gentlemen, some exciting times ahead. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.